Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Lady Chow Fung and Kenny for another episode of Wuxia Weekend. Today we're going to be talking about the film Legendary Weapons of China. This is a 1982 Lau Kar-Leung film. It stars Lau Kar-Leung, Hsiao Ho, Alexander Fu Sheng, Kara Hui, and Gordon Liu. The movie is basically a Boxer Rebellion film. It's about the Yi-Ho Society and its assistant branch manager in Yunnan who disbands the branch in order to avoid having to watch his students massacre themselves because they all believe that they're immune to bullets. And so they send a bunch of assassins after them, and each of the assassins has sort of a different motivation. And that's sort of what drives the movie is, one assassin wants to protect him. One of the assassins is committed to killing him, and another one is sort of forced to make a choice as he learns more. And there's more to the film than that, but that's sort of the crux of it. So, before we get into it, I just wanted to know what you guys thought of the movie. Lady Xiao Feng, I think you've seen this before, but Kenny, I think this is your first time seeing it.
Yep.
But we saw... what was it, Boxer Rebellion not long ago, so there might be some points of commonality there. But what were your thoughts on this one?
I enjoyed it. I feel like the setting was sort of a lot less important than the sort of showcasing of the martial arts skills or the people involved and demonstrating or the 18 weapons of China, I guess, as it were. And I think there was a very nice blend of humor from, I guess, Alexander Fu Sheng's character. His scenes were the most humorous I thought in the movie. But as a whole, I enjoyed the movie. But it didn't inspire me as much as actually the Boxer. What was Boxer?
Boxer's Rebellion.
Yeah, Boxer's Rebellion was. I don't know. I feel like that one spurred me more to sort of look into the actual rebellion and learn more about it. Whereas this one is just like more just enjoying the visuals and the choreography than anything else.
I like this movie. It's one of my favorite that has the Kara Hui, Lau Kar-Leung character as director, and he does the choreography for martial arts, and Gordon Liu. It's one of my favorites of their movies together. I think it had the right amount of comedy. It also had a lot of physicality to it. Some of the comedy was definitely physical based, but the other characters that were not comedic also were put through some physical paces. I think the storyline is good. It's not over convoluted, but it's a really good movie. I like the showcase of the different weapons, and I think that if there aren't exactly 18, it's very close to it.
And I really like this movie. The first time I saw it, I was really impressed with it, and I think it's the kind of film that you're really there. If you're largely there for the martial arts and stuff when you watch a movie like this, you're not going to be disappointed. It's got a lot of really good martial arts, and the comedy is also physical. So there's just so many. It really is like a cross between like a Chaplin film and a great martial arts movie. And it also has like a lot of magic in it too, which and so I was noticing this time around just how much wire work is in this one. And I don't really think of wire work quite as much when I'm thinking of a Lau Kar-Leung movie. I mean, maybe he makes extensive use of it and I just don't notice. But here I was really picking up on it, like in the scene where Alexander Fu Sheng is balancing on one leg, and it's obvious that they're using a wire, even though I couldn't see the wire, I knew it was there. And the scene where where the two men are fighting underneath the thatched roof overhang, and you can it's just all like sort of wire work and lightness kung fu. I really liked how that was blended with the magic, and just it worked visually for me. So I quite enjoy the movie, but I like I said, I think that the strength of it is the choreography and the physical performances and the comedy. In fact, I watched it with my wife, and which is rare. She doesn't usually watch these movies with me, and she, her big comment was that she thought it was really funny. So I do think there's definitely a lot of humor in this one. But what did you guys think of the opening? I mean, Lau Kar-Leung always has these great openings. We were talking about the Martial Club last time with the lion dance, and so this is sort of similar, where the movie is framed around the 18 Arms of Wushu, and we get this opening that's pretty dark. It's like a dark background, and then just we get a demonstration of all the various weapons used by the main protagonists in the movie.
It was very striking. I mean, it's definitely frames it, like you say, because it sets the expectation on what we should expect from the movie from the get-go. I think, the 18 weapons were, as far as things go, a key part of the plot, as far as the plot goes, anyway. And the demonstration of the weapons was quite interesting. I mean, some of them were a bit. I guess some of the weapon choices are. I say choices, but some of the weapons that they claim belong in the collection were a bit redundant. Like different types of spears. Like some of them were just like a little bit. Adding a little bit here doesn't really make that much difference, does it? Or, but I don't know. It was pretty cool. Like I guess people who are already fans of martial arts and Chinese martial arts in particular will already know most of the weapons, but I think the sort of the, I guess it's the what was it, the weird hook sword things with the little hand guards that are the crescent moon shaped, and also
I think they were the double tiger hook swords, maybe.
Yeah, and then there was also like the actual like hook swords as well, which I thought were pretty uncool and unusual. But...
Yeah, there were a lot of interesting weapons. I think that the 18 weapons can vary considerably, but they announce each one at the end of the movie as they're displaying them. Now this is available on Amazon and on Netflix. Unfortunately, on the Amazon one, all you get is the Chinese characters for the weapons. You don't get a translation of what it is. But on the Netflix version, they do translate it, and I think that's what they do on the DVD version as well. But it's incredibly helpful to actually have the name of the weapon as it's flying across the screen. But yeah, in terms of that opening, I don't know. I just love openings like that. I really like it when they do like a form, or they have some kind of like basically like a demo team type thing going on. It just gets me excited to see the film. I think the first time I remember noticing something like that was when I saw the movie Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, and Jackie Chan does that form at the start of it with that weird music, and ever since then I've been just hooked on movies that begin that way. But yeah, I'm sorry.
Sort of like the signature style of Lau Kar-Leung?
Well, no, because that was a Yuan Wu Ping film, I think. So I mean, it's just something that I mean, Lau Kar-Leung does seem to do it a lot. But also I think there have been Cheng Che movies that open this way.
Cheng Che does it too. He's displayed Alexander Fu Sheng in a couple of his openings.
It's just a really cool way to start a film. I don't know. It's just because you. It sort of says like this is like really important. There's a deep sort of foundation to what you're seeing on the screen, is kind of how it comes across to me.
Is it kind of like how the James Bond movies, how it was at the opening of the James Bond actor walking across the screen, suddenly he turns around and fires the gun?
Yeah.
And I'm a sucker for those too. Do you know what I mean? Like I love the honestly, like sometimes I like the James Bond openings more than I like the James Bond movie, and this is kind of the same. Like sometimes these openings are so great you can just watch them on your own, or on their own. But Lady Chao Feng, did you get a weigh in on that one, or did you have any thoughts?
I think the opening sequences are really great. You see different actors using the different weapons, and it does get you excited for what you're going to see, because then I don't know for anybody else, but for me, I was waiting to see each one of those weapons being used in the movie and trying to check them off mentally as I was going.
Yeah, I was trying to do that too. Though I would do it for like I could maintain my focus on that for like up to 3 or 4 weapons, and then I would just forget and start watching what was going on. I found that incredibly difficult to do. Maybe that's because of the internet. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like if I got a chance to watch the movie a couple more times, I definitely start a little chart on a notepad or something. Just tick it off as we go and count off. Make sure that all 18 get an adequate amount of screen time, just for fairness' sake.
What I like about the 18 weapons thing, it feels like the kind of constraint like a poet gives themselves when they're writing. You know what I mean? It's like that, except the poetry here is the fight choreography, and so it's like it's just an interesting frame to have to operate under. Like, because you have the title, and actually, is that what the title actually means? Do we know if this
Chinese?
Okay. So you start with that title, and it's like, as a viewer, you're like, okay, I know I'm going to see 18 weapons that are or the legendary weapons of China. So if it doesn't deliver, you'd notice.
It'd be like if Lord of the Rings had no rings in the movie whatsoever. Right?
Yeah. If they just ate second breakfast the whole movie or the whole book. But this is kind of a related thing because we were talking about it, but we do need to get into the subs versus the dubs, because we were in the discussion before the podcast. It was pretty clear that there were some issues with the dubs versus the subs, and again, it's on the Amazon version. If you're watching it on a streaming service, you can see it with the dubs, and on the Netflix version, I think you can alternate between the two of them. And I mean, I think we all kind of agreed that the dubs were they're kind of bad in this one. But I don't know what were your guys' thoughts on that one?
Go ahead, Kenny.
Go ahead. Go you first.
My main issue with the dubs was the sound, the voice actors that they chose for the actors just were really, really off for me. For Alexander Fu Sheng's character, Mo, they had this really silly, high-pitched tone voice that really annoyed me, and it made his character so much sillier and immature and stupider than it is in the subbed version. And that kind of threw me off, because I remember the first time I watched it, it had subtitles. So when I went to go watch it on Amazon and it was dubbed and this horrible squeaky voice comes through, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't barely watch this. But the dubbing really ruined the movie for me, that I had to go back and watch it on Netflix with the subs. The subs were so much better.
Yeah, I think the subs made a big difference in this one. The dubs, like you said, I think they lowered the quality of the characters in a lot of ways. I thought that the Lei Kung character came off terribly in the dubs, and he sounded like really almost out of his wits, and and I think that the word selection was bad. But Kenny, I know you had a couple of issues with the dubs that you were wondering about too.
Yeah, like so the voices was one thing. Like, they all sounded a little bit off, just the intonation and stuff. Like they were. It was obvious that they were reading off a script kind of thing rather than like acting anything out. But my main issue with the dubs is the content. So it makes it very confusing to sort of understand the conversations that are going on, and I felt like that just led to me not being sure like why characters are doing what they're doing or acting the way they are. So it's a bit of a disjoint between what the dubs are saying and what's going on the screen sometimes.
Yeah, and I do think that the subtitled version was so much more clear about what was happening, and it connected more to what seemed to be going on. And the dub version, I think there was just, I don't know, it just didn't feel as tight. It felt like there was maybe some issues with and maybe that was due to them trying to, sort of smash it into a dub and make sure that they because they do want it to sort of match the lips more, but. I think this is a movie where if you have the opportunity to see it with the subtitles, I'd go more with that. Even though again, the only thing that gives me pause is once I've already seen it enough with the subs, I don't really need to anymore, and I think that I can enjoy watching the movie with the dubs so that I can focus more on the action. And that's another sort of aspect of it.
Yeah, I just want to point out that so on Amazon, there are subtitles as well, but I think the subtitles are just a mirror of what the dubs are saying. So, if you are going to watch the Amazon Prime version, the subtitles there are also just as terrible as the dub in terms of trying to understand the story.
Yeah.
I didn't have that option because I would have just muted it and put the subtitles on if I had that option.
Yeah, I did get the subtitles at the bottom of the screen, but I couldn't change the audio at all. It was all in English dub, and like Kenny said, the subs just seemed to be a reflection of what the dubs were doing. But I guess another thing that we want to probably talk about, because this is Kara Hui month. And
yes.
and this is this is a movie that's got a full cast, so it's not just her, but her character's important. And I noticed a couple of things about her this movie. I thought we should maybe talk about her. One of the things that stuck out at me in this film was just how light and fast she is in that opening sequence. I mean, we always comment on her grace and her her skill at performing in these kind of movies, but she was exceptionally fast, I thought, and light moving, and again, I know there's a reverse crank thing that often goes on, but this still seemed very very quick to me, and I didn't quite notice that before, but I don't know if you guys had any thoughts that struck you about her performance.
I thought her performance was wonderful. I think with each movie, she gets better and better with her performance, and just the physicality of some of the things that she had to do in the movie. She was fighting in the alley with the other assassin that she was trying to persuade to her side. And the fighting, my favorite fight scene of hers was the actual fighting in the inn up in the attic part, where one was pretending to be a cat and the other one was pretending to be a rat. I thought that was a pretty cool fight, the way that kind of all worked out, the noises that they made trying to hide their actual fighting noises. I thought that was a really good, and the kind of trying to show it in a tight space, fighting in a tight space, was really good.
No, I definitely thought she did very well in terms of the physical performance there, and I think I don't know, I can't remember how this movie sort of sits in the time in the timeline of things of her sort of filmography, but I feel like she did ooze quite a bit of confidence in the fight scenes here, and maybe that's what sort of lends to the sharpness of her strikes. And it's just she seemed very at home with what was going on.
Yeah, no, she did. I got that too, and I was wondering how much of it was her being confident versus her character being very, I don't know, self-assured. She was always kind of smiling when she would deliver a strike and have this smile on her face. But yeah, she seemed very confident in this movie, and I think I think that's something that it's kind of like it's the sort of thing that you notice it when you watch a Bruce Lee movie, that kind of charisma that is, not like a lot of people can do the physical performance, but there's a reviewer called The Silver Spleen that I sometimes mention on the show, and he was talking about another unrelated movie, but one of the things he said about Bruce Lee with when he came up was that when he first saw him in the Big Boss, I think it was in the Big Boss, you couldn't not look at him. Do you know what I mean? Like, you had to look at him. Like, it's just impossible. And like, if you watch Bruce Lee movies, you know exactly what he's talking about. And I feel like this was very similar. Like, when she's doing that, you have to look at her. She's just got that kind of star power. And so I think that's maybe the confidence that you're getting at. But yeah, no, I just kind of wanted to at least spend some time commenting on that topic, because she's the we do these monthly themes, and this month is Kara Hui month. But another thing I noticed too was and again, I mean, this is a lot of movies have this trope, but when she was dressed as the man, I realized just how much she looked like the girl from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and it never occurred to me that maybe that was like specifically calling back to this movie. It's possible there was another film that it was calling back to. But to
be fair, like when it comes to like women cross-dressing as men in martial arts movies, they all tend to look the same to me.
That's true.
They always seem to go for the same look, don't they? Because they have to go for the youthful young master look type of thing. Because but traditionally, I guess women were supposed to be slighter of build and more fair of skin than the tan burly men in martial arts movies, right?
No, and it's been a long time since I've seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, so my memory of what she's wearing might actually be wrong. And like I said, it could there could be another movie that the director was thinking of, or he could have just been thinking of 18 different movies. But I felt like this seemed quite similar, just at a gut level. I guess at some point we're going to have to do Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon anyway. So when we do, we can make a point of comparing them. But something about the costume just seemed very similar to me. And again,
I'm with Kenny. I think they all wear the same costume when they're pretending to be men.
Okay.
I don't know. It just seems that way to me.
I know I might be barking up the wrong tree here. But I'm going to keep an eye on it when we get to Crouching Tiger. But I guess another thing that's somewhat connected is there's a thing going on in this movie where people are just using kung fu like willy-nilly. They're using kung fu and magic for like things that you wouldn't really need kung fu and magic for, almost like the Shaolin soccer film where they're using kung fu for everyday usages. I felt like the opening scene when T Tien goes to receives the eunuch, and he wants to give the eunuch like a private audience, so he like opens his arm and there's this big blast of smoke, and his whole retinue of men just go flying out of the room so that he can have a moment of privacy with the eunuch. He could have just said to them, "Hey, give us a moment," and they would have in just as fast a time walked away.
I feel like it's tied to the actual plot of the movie though. So these sort of theatrics are basically the whole the core sort of identity of the Yi War movement. Yeah, the Yi War sort of the Boxer Rebellion basically is all built around this idea that martial artists at the pinnacle are turned into mystic beings that are immune to bullets, basically, right? So I feel like these sorts of but by so flagrantly using these sort of sleight of hand, smoke and mirror stuff, it's sort of playing on the theme that these people are believing in the lies that that they have magical powers.
No, I think that's true, and I think it touches on another theme too, which is the whole idea that the Lei Kung character, his big flaw is he can't help but show off his kung fu, which is the way that they're gonna be able to find him in hiding, right? That he, he can't really conceal his kung fu because he unconsciously shows it off. But I feel like that was a similar thing. Do you know what I mean? Like it's this, when you reach this level of mastery, that you just can't turn it off. It's like part of what you do. And it also felt like a meta thing. Like in these movies, what like for example with the Alexander Fu Sheng character, he's supposed to be a guy who doesn't know martial arts, and he has a scene where he has to pretend to be a martial arts guy, and you can tell that he's turning it down a notch, but he still clearly is a human being who knows martial arts. Do you know what I mean? Like it's and you see the same thing in, like, again, in a Jackie Chan movie. I know that there must be more than one, because it just seems like I encounter this a lot with him, where films where he has to pretend that he either doesn't know martial arts for some reason, or that his martial arts is greatly diminished, and he's Jackie Chan, like he can't just turn it off. It's part of who he is, and so I think that's kind of, I don't know. So you see that sort of throughout the whole movie, at every level of it. But I'm sorry, Dion, did you want to say something? You look like you were trying to break in there.
No, I was just going to say that Alexander Fu Sheng's character was kind of brilliant in that he was the impersonator of a kung fu master, but really being a kung fu master and not really being able to hide it. Just what you were saying, it's hard to turn that off when you're trying to fake it. There's another movie that came to mind when I saw this, was Ways of Kung Fu with Chi Kwan Chun. He plays a character that at the beginning of the movie doesn't know any kung fu, and he's a kung fu master, and kind of like his movements are kind of fluid, but then by the end of the movie he's a real kung fu master. So it shows the acting ability too of the actor being able to downplay their abilities, even though they kind of still shine through.
Yeah, because that Alexander Fu Sheng duel in the street when he's pretending to be Lei Kung, I think that's one of my favorite fights in the movie, because it's just so entertaining. It's got like all the stuff I like about martial arts, but it's also got all the slapstick, and it's not slapstick in like a Jackie Chan style way. It's like a different kind. It's like it feels, I don't know, more like Chaplin or something. It's got there's a different vibe to it. I can't quite put my finger on it. Or like a Jim Carrey type thing, like we were saying before with Alexander Fu Sheng. But I think that scene, the first time I saw the movie, that scene kind of bothered me because it felt like so out of place with the rest of the film. Do you know what I mean? It's like this extended comedic sequence that almost feels like it's not really connected to the rest of the movie somehow. But the more I watch the movie, the more that's like become my favorite section of the film. And I think it's just the kind of what we're talking about, like the idea of this guy he's not supposed to be a martial artist, but he's being played by a guy who really does know all this stuff, and so he's still sort of, it still kind of radiates that, but he's able to, because he doesn't have to be like the best martial artist in the world, like he doesn't have to, he's not trying to demonstrate that. He's able to do all these goofy things that just make you laugh. But yeah, so I know, getting into that, what did you guys think of that sort of? I guess number one, the Alexander Fu Sheng character, because he's kind of a weird guy, but the duel in the street and the situation at the outhouse that he ends up in soon afterwards.
I mean, I'm a bit conflicted because on one hand, I feel like you could cut out Alexander Fu Sheng from the movie and find another arbitrary reason for how what was Hsiao Ho's character's name again? Tian Hao, like another sort of excuse for why he catches a cold and needs to be nursed back or whatever.
Yeah,
but. On the other hand, that scene was so well done, and such an amusing part of the movie. It's just like I'm quite conflicted with whether whether I feel like it belongs or not.
Well, I think sometimes we get really hung up on this idea of can you pare down, like a good movie is one that's pared down and tightly focused, like Bride with White Hair. That was an example of a movie that I think we all agreed was like concise in a way. It really was well structured, and one scene flowed into the next, and it didn't feel like there was a lot of wasted space. But one of the things that makes this movie entertaining is the superfluous scenes. The scenes that aren't necessarily essential to the film, but they give it its overall character. And I think that this is one, for me, that's where I would file it. But I totally get what you're saying, because it's like you could remove this from the movie and the plot would be pretty much unaffected. Like all you need to really establish is how the Hsiao Ho character gets sick. That's the really big thing that sort of that results from it. So yeah, I don't know. Dion, do you have any thoughts?
Well, for me, you could cut Alexander Fu Sheng's scenes out, and it still would be a great movie. And there would be another way for the coal to be caught and everything. But to me, it's like each one of the characters has to figure out. Each one of the assassins has to figure out how to draw Uncle Yu out into the open so that they can assassinate him or protect him. And each one of them has their way of doing it. And I think Alexander's impersonation of him was to draw him out in order for one group of assassins to get to him. The other one was that you just look for his movements. A guy who doesn't know that he's using his kung fu, and then I don't know what Kara Hui was supposed to be, how she was trying to figure out who it was. But I think, so I don't know. I'm kind of torn like Kenny. You can take it out, but then I can see the arc that it's taking and how it fits in. But it's a good scene.
No, I mean, but that's the thing. It's like such an enjoyable scene. Like every time I've talked with people about this movie, they talk about that scene. Like those two scenes both get talked about. You can't not talk about them somehow. The outhouse scene it's just weird. It's like it's uncomfortable at times because it's in an outhouse and there's like sewage water underneath, and that's how Hsiao Ho's character gets sick. And so there's a lot of cringing components to that scene, but also it's a really cool fight scene where Alexander Fu Sheng. So in the first scene, he's a guy pretending to be a kung fu master, and he's really hamming up sort of the I'm an invincible kung fu guy, but they're using like little dirty tricks to deceive the audience. But then in the next scene, he's controlled by the Lei Yung character with like a ventriloquist doll, basically. It's like a voodoo doll. He's just manipulating his body and having him fight, and that's some of the most that to me is some of the most impressive physical acting in the movie, because there's not a moment that I don't buy that Alexander Fu Sheng is this puppet. You know what I mean? And that's got to be really hard to do. And again, it was, like I said, it was definitely wire work, but that scene where he lifts up his leg and he's just wavering back and forth was, I don't know, that's like up there with like all the, the great sort of Chaplin moments and stuff. It's just that kind of performance. So I think it's, I think you could, story-wise, you could take it out, but you wouldn't want to take it out because it adds so much to the movie overall. And it's just a classic, sequence of martial arts. But yeah, so I guess the other thing that came to mind when I was watching this was the edutainment aspect of Lau Kar-Leung movies. Like this is Legendary Weapons of China. We're sort of being, it almost seems like we're being given an education in the 18 Arms of Wushu here, and and again, in the last movie we did was the Martial Club. We got an education on the lion dance, and so there does often seem to be that framing in a Lau Kar-Leung movie. And I was just curious if anybody had thoughts on that, if they thought that was a good thing, or if they thought that if it ever weighs the movies down.
I feel like they could have done like it. I don't know if it was like a conscious choice from Lau Kar-Leung to make it sort of educational, but if it was supposed to be educational, like explaining it a little bit, like I don't know, or I don't feel like they sort of showed the specialty of each of the weapons off, if that makes sense, or all the shortcomings of it. I guess there are some parts, like for the spear, the fact that when in the scenes fighting when they're fighting with the spear, getting close in range sort of completely negates the weapon. Yeah, that sort of stuff. But more for the the more obscure things. Like from what I could see, the 3 sections nunchucks were basically overpowered as hell, apparently. But I'm not sure how the weapon balance in this game goes, right?
Yeah, and I think for edutainment, I was just thinking more in terms of introducing the concept to people, like making sure they sort of grasp that aspect of it.
Well, I mean, I guess there were some weapons where you look at it and they're using it in a very basic way, and it's just not really, and it's hard to see what the extra bits are there for. Like, what purpose did they serve? Like, if they could showcase the uniqueness of these weapons a little bit more and what sets them apart from the other weapons, like not verbally or anything, but in within the choreography itself, I feel like that would have.
I don't know. I felt like the weapons kind of got like I don't know. I'd have to watch it again with that criticism in mind, but I feel like the weapons got the they sort of got a shine as the weapon. Do you know what I mean? Like I sort of, but I'd have to watch it again more closely, thinking about that to really, dig into that particular idea.
And it's mostly the last fight scene where this is applicable, because they do the entire showcase of the weapons.
Yep.
Or at least we think so. We need a notepad to make sure.
You know what struck me about that scene is I thought that it was really more about the poetic like rhythm that it was establishing. Like there was this escalation toward like where they finally sort of get reduced to just using the unarmed technique, and it's like, and that's like the pinnacle of the martial art. Like that's like when it just, I don't know. I thought that really worked. But another thing I noticed was the musical quality that the weapons were adding to the scenes. Like, I mean, I've talked about it in the past with other movies where like there's a thing that goes on with the sound effects they use that like really kind of makes it engaging and exciting. But in this one, I noticed it a lot because they kept switching weapons up all the time, and so they go from one weapon to the other, and the tones of the sound effects are changing, and like when they use the shields, it's like a drum. It's just this bashing sound, and then like like that's like contrasting with like the whipping and chiming of the swords, and and then like you get like thudding when it's 2 wooden weapons, and I thought that was kind of cool that you were just getting this rapid change up of the sound effects as the weapons were shifting.
That reminds me of a documentary I once saw when I was in Hong Kong, I think, where there was like the special effects people were talking about how they make the noises for this sort of thing, and I don't know, maybe I don't know if we can find anything similar for in English we could watch, because I think that'd be pretty interesting just to see how they make these noises and how they synchronize it all together and and then weave it into the movie. Because like you said, the sounds of the weapons, like there is no music or any other sound effects in the last scene. It's purely from the clashing of the weapons and the movement of the people that sort of creates this unique beat to the scene. And if we could get the point of view from the other side, from the production side of things, it might be quite interesting.
Yeah, I saw something kind of similar to what Kenny saw and how they put the sound effects and into the movie, and it was pretty interesting. We have to find a video.
Yeah,
online.
I would like to watch something like that, because I'm quite curious about it. And but Kenny, do you remember any of the answers that the documentary provided? Like, did they Is there anything that stuck out?
It was a while back, but I remember just thinking I did not realize you could make that sort of sound with this sort of thing. Like it was the thing, so where it's like that you wouldn't expect the objects being used to create the sound effects like to be things that they'd use sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's
Similar
interesting.
to like how even in like Western series, how they use like lettuce as the sort of sound for crushing skulls or whatever, right?
Is that what they use? They use lettuce for skull crushing?
Yeah.
Okay. I can see that. That makes sense to me.
Crunching noise as it's and then squelch that comes after.
No, that's funny. Yeah. What we need to do is we need to find like a sound engineer and get them on the show so we can pick their brain. I'd also be curious how much, because I know that like a lot of times when these movies get remastered, the sound gets adjusted or remastered too. So, I don't know how much of it is the original sound that the movie had versus what was added years later.
I found something on YouTube. It's how are the sound effects of the Shaw Brothers martial arts movies made. It's in the documentary called Fist of Fire.
That's very specific.
Yeah.
Shaw Brothers movies only applicable to Shaw Brothers movies. Any other movies, out of scope.
Yeah, we'll have to do an episode on that if we can find a way, because I think it's something I'm always very curious about. But I just don't know. I just picture people in a room like slamming two sticks together and like breaking plates on the ground, and but they must have a system set up for this sort of thing. But here it really seemed to work. Like that, especially like you really notice it when those shields come out, and it's like wow, that was a drum. That wasn't like that was like he used that shield like a drum just now. It really got me. But yeah, so I don't know what about the overall, would you say that you thought it was successfully handled the legendary weapons framing, or do you think that it was were you disappointed that after seeing it?
Mildly for me, like they showcase all the weapons. I thought that was good, and but like I said, like if they managed to make it a bit more obvious, the differences between each weapon type and why they were unique and not just not just like a reskin of another weapon type of thing.
Dion, how about you?
I thought that I guess I didn't need that much of an explanation of anything. I just liked seeing the different weapons instead of seeing what we normally see all the time. But and the same characters using pretty much the same weapon the whole entire movie. But just to see the different characters using different weapons throughout the movie and not just having one that they're very skilled at was really refreshing.
Yeah, I like sort of the setup of I'm going to use these 18 weapons during the movie at some point, and then and sort of it's sort of like a promise that they have to follow through on, and so I like the concept. I liked how it was handled. I feel like it's more just the fact that they used them rather than how well they were necessarily used. Just the fact that they were alternating weapons the way they were. But I'd be curious, what it might look like if it were more clear about the distinctions between the weapons, like Kenny was suggesting. I don't know. I feel like I'm trying to think of how that would actually look, like what they would need to do to really.
Yeah, it's not simple at all, is it?
Yeah, no, I think it's quite difficult. I mean, I was satisfied with what I saw, but I can sort of appreciate where you're coming from on it. But yeah, I just really like the changing up at that, like especially when they get to like when they start putting the name of the weapon across the screen. There's just kind of a cool drama to that, like just it was like I don't know, I just enjoyed that. But and yeah, I think I think the movie in general, again, I think it's just this. It's we pretty much say this with every Lau Kar-Leung movie that we like, but it's just a nice blend of comedy, action, martial arts, and heart. Like, you have the relationship between the Lei Kun character and the Tian Hao character, Hsiao Ho's character, who goes from wanting to kill him to being nursed back to health by him, and then sort of having the blinders taken off by him, and so I don't know. Did you guys have any thoughts on the character relationships in that respect? And
it was, I don't know. I feel like some of it was sort of lost in the dub. Like, I mean, I could understand from context what was going on, and got a bit of a sense of the chemistry there. But the voice actors, just made it all so bland and took the heart. You said the movie had heart, but I feel like the voice actors took the heart out of the movie.
I think that is a fair assessment of the dubs. I really I don't think I noticed it quite so much the last time I saw it with the dubs on, but this time I really was having a hard time with some of the way some of the dubs were done. And maybe it was because I had just watched it with the subs on, and I had a much different impression in my mind of the characters. But I think it does have an impact on it. But I don't know, Dion. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. What were your thoughts on I guess the heart issue of the movie?
I think that the dubs totally had an impact on it. The dubs made me not like the Alexander Fu Sheng character at all. When I knew that I really enjoyed him the first time that I had seen it, and it. I don't know, it just kind of made the characters dumber than what you thought that they were, and in some ways a little bit more harsh or harder, and not as soft and well-defined, and without the heart. The dubs, I agree with Kenny, took a lot away.
I feel like the dub actors were going full throttle in whatever it was they were trying to do. So if they were angry, they were really, really angry. And if they were like trying to be a little bit confused, they sounded baffled. It just there was no shading. It was just all done at volume 10. And that's not how it comes off in the in the subtitles when you have. Was it a Cantonese track or was it a Mandarin track?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it says Mandarin on Hong Kong Movie Database, but I'm not 100% sure either. But I think one other thing we do want to talk about. What about the Gordon Liu character, the monk guy, Mr. Intensity in this movie? What do people think of him?
Yeah, he pulled off the very serious, no funny business character very well. A few sort of, in the first couple of scenes where he was there, I was like, is he blind? I'm not really sure. He's just staring so intensely at something. But I don't know. I enjoyed his sort of monk character. he had the hair for it already. So.
And the hat, he had the conical hat that added a lot to the character,
and the exploding Buddha on his back.
yeah. He has like a Buddha statue on his back that can be shot off, and there were all kinds of little concealed weapons in that fight sequence with him, where blades were coming out of people's sleeves and like all kinds of things. But that Buddha statue is really surprising because it just shoots off of his back, and he's wearing it the whole time, so you're kind of like, what's up with this statue? What's the significance of this? And it's cool that it gets deployed during that fight. But he was just so intense. He just seemed like such an intense character in this movie.
Yeah, he was way, way too serious, especially when you compare him with the Alexander Fu Sheng's silly impersonator. I mean, you had two extremes in this movie. And I mean, Gordon did a wonderful job. You know, usually he can be kind of ham it up funny too, but in this one, he did a really good job. It's different seeing him as the not necessarily the hero type.
Yeah, this is him as like kind of I mean, he's almost the closest thing the movie has to a villain, wouldn't you say? Like, I mean, there's the other, there's the what is it, the TTN character, but he kind of only is at the beginning, and then he shows up, and then he's quickly diffused. But I felt like every time I see this, the character I'm most afraid of is the Gordon Liu character.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And he's almost like a I don't know what you would call him, but he's like out of a slasher movie type thing. You know, he's just kind of walking around, and he's like the martial arts exterminator is how he comes across to me.
Yeah, it feels, because I guess it does feel like the movie is setting the tone that people might get persuaded, redeemed, or otherwise, you know, swayed over to the side that doesn't send people up against machine guns. Whereas his character does seem like the type that is like he was so intense and just seemed so unyielding, and like he was never going to compromise. So yeah, you're right in the sense that he was probably the most antagonistic of the people who showed up. Like even the sect master seemed a bit more reasonable than he did, because he was the one who was like, those disciples just got shot in the heart and died. All right, next batch, let's try that again.
Yeah, because he was in charge. He was the one that was like training them and leading the performance, and yeah, these guys just dropped dead, and he's like, okay, you know, next group, and then like they have to, you know, put an end to it. It was, you know, but his character was just so committed. And so, yeah, I don't know. And even in that fight, he's like still convinced that they're going to figure out how to do it. It's just like a matter of perfecting the technique or something. You know, there's a whole debate that he has with the Lei Kung character, that is ultimately, I think, meant to persuade, Hsiao Ho's character. But yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed Gordon Liu in this movie, and I liked some of the things he had him do, like the thing where Lau Kar-Leung's fingers get stuck in his shoulder blades when he tries to like ridge hand him in the back, and he just squeezes him and pins him in place. You know, there's all these like, you know, cool little moves like that. But yeah, I don't know. Any other thoughts on the movie?
No, I want to see if I can find a copy of this movie in the original, in the original language with subtitles, just to, because it's not on Netflix over here, so
you can get it on Dragon Dynasty, I believe. I forget which version. I have a version of it that's like I got one of these DVDs that has 4 different movies on it, and Legendary Weapons of China was one of them. But I think there's a normal Dragon Dynasty version of it out there that you can get. There should be.
Yeah.
You know, it's
so, yeah, I was just saying, like, it just sounds like I feel like I enjoyed the movie a lot more if it was, you know, in the original voices and being able to hear the acting, instead of just seeing it and hearing something completely different.
Yeah, I think it does make a difference. What I can do is I can try to link to it in the podcast description if it's available, which we should be able to find out pretty quickly. You know, any other thoughts before we head out?
There is an interview somewhere on the internet with Lau Kar-Leung about the legendary weapons of China, and I think it's why he chose to showcase those certain weapons. And the only reason why I remembered it is because he talked about the little fuzzball at the end of the spears being a blood splatter guard to protect the person who was wielding it from the other person's blood. I remember that.
That's
interview.
That's a really cool but unnerving thing to have invented. Like that people's blood spattering on you is a problem. So you need to invent a guard. That's interesting. Yeah, I think there was something like that on the DVD too. Maybe that's where that comes from. But I'll have to look it up. I'm as people can't see, but I'm not at my normal location, so I don't have access to the DVD right now. But yeah, so again, there's an interview with Lu Feng that Lady Chow Feng did up on the podcast channel, which people can check out, and we also posted the actual video footage on the Wuxia Weekend Facebook page, so you can see it there, and it's definitely worth checking out. There's a lot of cool information in it. And we'll be back on next week. I believe we're supposed to do a Chinese Ghost Story 2011. We're going to continue with the Kara Hui theme for the month, and then we'll I think next month we're going to be doing something Halloween theme, which should be interesting. So all right. So until then, we will talk to you later.